Hey, hey, Facebook family. I do this every week. Right here I am again, not wearing my microphone. Hold on. Oh, wait. Welcome. Welcome to Sergeant Dorsey Speaks live at 5 on Thursday, you guys. Welcome, welcome. Come on in, have a seat, and welcome to my first guest, the birthday boy. Let me get my microphone on, and I wish I could sing because I would sing happy birthday to you. But if I did that, I promise you, um, if I started singing, the room would clear out. So I am not going to do that, but I want to wish a very special happy birthday to one of my Facebook family members, my with me for a while, and I didn't even know it, family members. Birthday boy, yeah, you know who you are. I'm not going to say your name. Or do you want me to? Is it okay to say your name? Birthday boy. Happy birthday. I hope today was amazing. And I'm honored, sir, that you would spend your birthday evening watching Sergeant Dorsey Speaks. That means everything to me. So thank you for that. And welcome to everybody who's here. And yeah, lots going on, lots to talk about. I decided today, as many of you know, to do an in-person invite, if you will. I did a live video earlier today reminding everybody to come on and sit down with me at 5 o'clock. And I think you guys let me know what you think, but I think it's a little more personal when I come to you as opposed to sending you a digital piece of paper, right? A digital invite reminding you about Sergeant Dorsey Speaks live at 5 on Thursdays. So let me know. Let me know if you like that, and if so, well, I don't even. It may not matter if you like it or not. I liked it, and at the end of the day, it is really all about me, right? So I probably will just do that going forward. I like the concept. I like the idea of coming to you in the morning and just saying, "Hey, good morning," in the midst of whatever it is that I'm doing, and so you'll get a two for on Thursdays from me going forward. You'll get 2 live videos with me saying, come back later. And then you'll get me later in the day like you have me. So welcome. Thank you everybody for coming on. Oh, got to take care of some, house cleaning stuff. And I need you to do the same thing now that you're here. Share this on your timeline with your friends so that they'll have an opportunity to, what am I doing? So that they will have an opportunity to, oof, what is going on? Share it. You share it. I'm trying to share it, and I'm not having a whole lot of success. But share this on your timeline, everybody. And when I have little glitches and stuff like that, it's funny to me how like last week you guys couldn't hear me, and some of you were telling me that you couldn't hear me. And so as people watch the recorded version of my live, and I was saying, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?" Folks were saying after the fact, to a recorded message, "I can hear you." So I always find that kind of funny, and I appreciate you guys being responsive to me like that. But if you're watching a recorded video, you don't really have to chime in because I'll miss it. But share it on your timeline, and want to say thank you to one of my YouTube subbies. I had a lady share a very personal story with me, and I'll talk about it a little later. I'm not going to get into it today, subby. So I didn't forget about you. I'm just not talking about it today. Probably will discuss it on my podcast for sure over the weekend. And what it has to do with legislation, law regarding failure to protect family. I'm just going to put that out there for those of you who don't know. There's a situation going on in some states, and the ACLU on a national level is getting involved in this failure to protect law that disproportionately affects Black women when it comes to protecting your children from abusers. I think that kind of played a part in the whole Malia Davis thing, right? Said the mom seemingly didn't protect her daughter from a boyfriend. And so I have a subby who has a very personal story that she shared with me with regards to her sister, who is up against that whole failure to protect law. She's been in prison now for 15 years. She was living with an abusive man, father of her children. And the ACLU in Oklahoma, which is where she's in prison right now, is getting behind her effort to get her sentence commuted. And with regards to this young woman's story, there are others in other states that seem to disproportionately target, if you will, Black women under the guise of failure to protect your children. Texas, Illinois, as well as Oklahoma are the states that are being looked at by the ACLU. And so I had an opportunity to have a conversation with one of the attorneys from the ACLU in Oklahoma, and it's my belief and hope that I'll be able to do some collaborating, some advocating, if you will, for these, for particularly this one particular woman in Oklahoma, Tandaleo Hall is her name. And I'll talk more about her story because it's kind of long and involved, and I want to give it the time that I think it deserves. I don't want to rush over it, but there's so many other stories that I want to talk about. So I'll be talking about the failure to protect law and how it has adversely affected a young Black woman by the name of Tandaleo Hall in Oklahoma. So you'll hear more about that going forward. Okay, so let's get to it. Wanted to start off talking about, let's see. Okay, so you guys kind of already know what I'm going to talk about, but I'll give you the topics. I'm going to talk about this white supremacist who was recently sentenced to prison. Also, a white security guard who chased a Black man on duty police officer in uniform out of an IRS building. I'll talk a little bit about that. Some Montgomery police officer is in trouble for using the N-word. And then I'm going to bring you up to speed on all of my celebrity gossip because I want to talk a little bit about that. So for those of you who don't know, shame on you. My podcast dropped on Tuesday, Sergeant Dorsey Speaks. Subscribe to it on the podcast platform of your choice. And that way you'll get notified every Tuesday in case you don't remember, because I know you do have a life, right? And you'll get to hear what I talked about on my podcast on Tuesday. And one of the things that I referenced on Tuesday, and I'm gonna talk about it a little bit more today, only because I think it bears repeating. And this is in regards to a 17-year-old white female here in Anaheim, California, who was shot and killed about a week or so ago by a Fullerton police officer when she pulled a replica handgun on that officer. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but that was some of what you missed if you aren't already subscribing to Sergeant Dorsey Speaks on the podcast platform of your choice. So make sure you do that. Also, real quick, so there's a lot of stuff going around because you guys know there's an election coming up, right? And listen, Black people, we get really distracted easily, I think, and we forget what happened in that last election. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist or any of that, but I do believe that I believe what I read about Russian interference and about, these bots pretending to be Black folks and creating accounts. Facebook has all but admitted it, creating accounts and mimicking the kinds of things that seem to be important to us to divide us. And so listen, between now and election time, I need you to focus. I need you to focus. I need you to not get distracted, because what's going on in my mind right now with Lil Tink Tink and his attack on these 4 female congresswomen, these 4 women of color that he said need to go back. I don't know where they'd go back to, because 3 of them are American citizens born here and 1 is naturalized. But nonetheless, this is not going away, and it's being talked about repeatedly in the news. And I think it's a distraction. I think it's a distraction to keep us from paying attention to things that are of much more import. And so, hey, Debbie Taylor, what's up, sister girl? I think it's a distraction. And so don't be distracted is my point. And to that point, there's all these little things that keep coming up on social media, and it amazes me how many of us get caught up. I'm talking about that Face app dealing with the aging, because now there's an article going around. Several sources are reporting that it was maybe something that the Russians put out, and why the Russians want our pictures, I don't know. But nonetheless, everybody got all caught up and they wanted to know what they look like in 40 years. Look, look, in 40 years, I would look just like this. Because I've been looking like this like for the last 20, right? Black don't crack, right? You understand what I'm saying. So don't get caught up in, changing your Facebook icon to the flag of, the Wakanda, or the colors of Paris, or some other thing when it happens. Because I think it's like a social experiment to see what exactly can other people who you do not know get you to do. And that's why I've said to you guys on my Facebook page, I don't wave, quit waving at me. I don't wave, I don't share stuff, don't send me nothing in my inbox talking about make it go viral. Because I'm thinking, if you want it to go viral, put it on your page, sir, ma'am. Who does that? I don't click on anything with attachments. I don't look at videos. So for you guys, listen, know that I love you. Really, I do. But I don't click on or read any of that mess you send me in an inbox message. I just don't. And you guys should be mindful of the kinds of things that you share, because you don't know, from whence it came, right? So be careful, because I think that, things are only going to get more amplified, if you will, between now and time to vote. And listen, I don't have a real clear, person that I am looking at for this election, but I promise you, whichever Democrat winds up getting the nomination, I'll be voting for that person, because I don't think you guys want another, 4 years, a little tink. I don't think you do. And I'll tell you why I don't think you should when I get to the story about Eric Garner. But let me start off talking about what's going on with R. Kelly, because I tell you what, I normally, I really do try to side with victims of domestic violence and abuse, and even, the so-called sex slaves, right? That's air quotes, because that's what they're referred to right now. These two women that are living in R. Kelly's situation. I'm so sick of these heifers. Can I just say that? I am so sick of these heifers. Listen, at some point, you know what? You just got to give the people what they want. And if they want to stay with R. Kelly, given what we know about him, that he's passing out venereal diseases like chiclets, and, urinating on folks and telling you when you can eat and can't eat. And it kind of seems like some of that's true right now, because these heifers are saying, they saved up all this money because he was paying them a stipend because they were his assistants. Okay. But they don't have access to it. So how sharp could these young ladies be, right? You got money, allegedly, that you've earned, however you earned it, assisting. And it's in a bank account that you can't access. What kind of sense does that make? Why wouldn't you have your own bank account if you were really about that life, if you were really handling your business, ladies? So now the person who evidently runs this bank account is gone. They're MIA, because folks in his camp are just flipping like pancakes. And they are telling and talking, and this thing is doggone like an 8-legged monster. 8-legged octopus? Yeah, that's a monster. This story is going all over the place. So anyway, this time I think the charges are going to stick, because very different from 2002, the young woman who was allegedly in that video in 2002 is now in her 30s, it's reported, and she has been talking to the investigators. She's working with the feds and she's cooperating, unlike what she did when she was younger. And there was, belief that she was a certain age and she was who she was on the video. Nobody could really prove it. They couldn't substantiate it. It wasn't a clear angle or shot of R. Kelly. There was some kind of tattoo or birthmark or something that folks were saying, who had seen his naked ass, that was him. But nonetheless, it didn't stick in 2002. But now this young girl, she's testifying and she's talking, and folks are cooperating what it is she has to say as the victim this time around. And so that, in addition to these other charges, racketeering and coercing and tricking and all the other tomfoolery that he had going on with these women, he's going to be hard pressed to get out of this one, I think. Witnesses are giving tapes that clearly show R. Kelly, and ain't no doubt about it, it's R. Kelly. This young lady said from 2002, those 3 videos that had her in it where it wasn't clear, she said, yeah, that was me, and yeah, that was him. So yeah, it's all bad. And he went to court and the judge denied bond. And so while these 3 ladies are making videos and threatening to be at press conferences, which they weren't at this week, they were in court, but they didn't stay for the press conference because they want everybody to know, their parents or whomever, because I do think they're brainwashed. But they may just have to grow up. They may have to grow up and then wonder who's gonna want to deal with them with that situation they got going on. Whatever that special thing is R. Kelly been giving them over and over again that probably there are no pills, shots, or creams for. Yeah, when they grow up, they'll figure it out. It may be too late, and all of that. But nonetheless, right now, I'm almost thinking that they get what they get, and I'm sick of them. And I'd like to hear no more. But since they keep talking about it, I guess I'll keep talking about it. Also, with regards to celebrities and sex crimes and charges, Jeffrey Epstein went to court today trying to get out on bond of some sort. They're not playing with him either. Listen, the judge said no bail, no bond for him. Now, his attorney had proposed a $77 million package that they would put up so that Epstein could get out. And part of that included a private jet and a Manhattan mansion as collateral. But listen, this is a guy who's purported to own his own private island. We know this week because it was reported in the news in court that he had a passport that had his picture on it, but another name, and said he lived in Saudi Arabia, and the doggone passport book had stamps in it. What? So that means he used that passport to go somewhere. Now it's expired, but clearly he has the means to get a counterfeit passport, a fake passport, and he successfully used one before. And he's also reported to have $100 million in a bank somewhere. So listen, giving up a little Manhattan mansion and a jet would be a small price to pay to be free. I'm just saying. So the judge was like, no, sir, we're just going to hold on to you for just a little bit until this thing goes to trial. And then also in other celebrity sex news, been real quiet. You didn't hear much about it, but Kevin Spacey was charged with some kind of shenanigans, and his case was just dismissed, dropped. Now, the reason that I read his case had been dropped is because the victim was told to turn over his cell phone, and there was something about messages between him and Spacey the night of the whole, grabbing situation. And the victim didn't want to do it. Now, I don't know what's up with the victim. Maybe this person was just trying to come up because, guys are no different than girls, right? So maybe this male victim was just trying to come up on the back of Kevin Spacey. Now, I'm not saying, because I don't know Kevin Spacey, I don't know if he really did that thing that they said he did or not, but the victim dropped the charges. And so now Kevin Spacey is good to go. So that's that. Now, listen, I was on CNN International a couple of times in the last 2 weeks. And this most recent appearance, I talked about the whole Eric Garner situation because the Department of Justice had until 5 years to decide whether or not they were going to pursue civil rights investigation or civil rights charges, I guess, with regards to Eric Garner's death. And so we just had the 5-year anniversary of Eric Garner's death. And so I knew all along that the DOJ was not going to pursue any civil rights investigation. Granny Sessions pretty much said that when he was the attorney general. He said that, he gave me the impression, and I believed him when he said it, that they don't have an appetite to pursue anything that has to do with anybody rights being violated that looks like me. So I certainly wasn't expecting anything like that to happen. And that's why I said it's important, people, to figure out what you're going to do in this next election, because I don't think all these politicians to me are same, but I don't think if we had a Democrat in office that they would be doing the kind of stuff that's going on right now. I don't think. But if you guys aren't paying attention and you guys fool around and cut your nose to spite your face like you did in 2016, you do that mess again and you're going to have 4 more years of this foolishness. So you need to figure it out. You need to figure it out. So to my point about, this little tink, he's the one that appointed the attorney general, right? And now he's got an attorney general who don't mind doing his bidding. And listen, they're not even pretending with you guys. They just doing what the heck they want to do. And then they be like, yeah, you don't like it? Okay. So Barr just said, you know what, let me just go ahead and put this baby to bed, even though this thing was going to, the statute was going to toll anyway. He could have just waited and let that 5-year anniversary come and go, and nothing was ever done with regards to civil rights violations for Eric Garner and the family. But Barr said, you know what, let me just go ahead in here. Let me just tell you what we're not going to do. What we're not going to do is we're not going to pursue any civil rights violation charges. So there you go. So listen, you can fuss and complain and do all that if you want to, but if you don't get involved and get engaged, if you don't vote, because voting and not voting has consequences that we'll continue to have, because they're going to continue to kill us. Know that. Be clear. They're going to continue to kill us. Police officers around the nation, they're going to continue to kill us. And we're going to continue to be upset for a moment until we're not, until something else happens. And then we start the cycle all over again. And so if you ever want to have just the remotest possibility of having some civil rights violations actually dealt with, then we need to have somebody in the White House who will appoint an AG that might. Doesn't guarantee a Democrat is going to have one, because I already hear the people hollering, they even said that to me on CNN International, well, this started under Obama. Yeah, it started under his presidency, near the end of his presidency. And we know that there was certainly a lot of obstruction going on with regards to things he was trying to get accomplished. So Obama's DOJ leader, if you will, the head of the DOJ, his attorney general didn't do anything. I don't know if they had enough time to do anything, to be quite honest with you, because these investigations are labor intensive and it takes a while. But certainly these people that are in the White House right now really are not caring about whether or not you guys' rights are violated. So if you like it, I love it. I'm just saying, because I wasn't surprised. And for those of you who've been listening to me and been watching me, you've heard me say this before, and I'm not Nostradamus. I don't have a crystal ball. I just know what I know. And what I know is that there will be nothing beyond the family getting that $6.4 million that they got. And I'm talking about Eric Garner's family. They've already received a civil settlement. So a grand jury in Staten Island already decided that they were not going to indict Pantaleo. That's already happened. And this civilian review board right now, who is in the midst of some kind of administrative, whatever they're doing, I promise you, when they're done, Pantaleo will keep his job, because there's nothing else for them to do now. No criminal indictment. Staten Island jury said no. No civil rights violation. DOJ said no. He's been on his job at the desk making $93,000 a year, it's reported. So he'll keep his job. This independent civilian review board, whatever they come back with, is not going to cause the commissioner, the NYPD commissioner, to take his job away from him. Because listen, that's the same guy who said it's okay for his officers to run over people in an SUV on a bicycle to help keep you safe, right? That's the same commissioner who's been condoning all of the foolishness that goes on that's committed by the NYPD officers. And that's the same commissioner whose chief surgeon, because NYPD has their own chief surgeon, who said Eric Garner died because he was overweight, he was obese, he had asthma, and he was diabetic, and he had all these health problems. That's why he's dead. He's not dead because of some chokehold. And you know that makes no sense, right? Because if that were true, then what he is saying is that Eric Garner would have died that day anyway because he was overweight and had diabetes, right? It's insulting. It's insulting. So people, don't lose your mind when Pantaleo gets to keep his job and continue to earn that $93,000 every year as he sits on the desk. It's not a bad gig if you can get it. Voting and not voting has consequences. And listen, this is not unique to the Eric Garner case, and we know this because we've seen what's happened with juries and jurors and those who decided not to indict on a variety of other incidents. But there was something interesting that I wanted to share with you because, you know, this is really multifaceted, and I want you to understand how and why this happens. While I talk about these stats, because I'm not data driven, but I know some folks are, let me just say this, because James Farr, I see what you, we had a conversation earlier today, and I see what you said. I'll comment on that in a minute, James. I'm not ignoring you. Hey, Barry, thank you for loving my hair tonight. I appreciate that. I'm just acknowledging, hey, Tanya Bobo, I'm just acknowledging some of you that are coming on and typing to me because I want you to know that I'm paying attention. But listen, back to Eric Garner and juries and why this is so complex, if you will. Here's some statistics for those of you who like numbers. I just tell you what I know because I did it. It was my life. I'm not a numbers girl, but I'm going to just throw out some stuff, some research and some data for those of you that like that. According to the Mapping on Police Violence, this is a group that tracks deadly police encounters. And what they are reporting that law enforcement officers, U.S., either intentionally or accidentally killed more than 6,800 people. And that was between 2013 and 2018. 6,800 people were killed by U.S. law enforcement officers. Okay, so that's police, that's deputies, that's, you know, detention officers, DOJ, DEA, any peace officer, 6,800. And there are other groups who have similar numbers. So this is not anything that's unique to this one particular organization, Mapping Police Violence. There's some other groups, killedbypolice.net, and also the Washington Post reported very similar numbers with regards to people who have been killed by police officers. And the number of deaths reported by the Mapping Police Violence in those 6,800 that we talked about, only 1.7% of the officers are ever charged. 1.7% of the officers are charged. And then of those few that are charged, you know, it's very difficult to get a conviction. And that was one of the things that I talked about on CNN International is, you know, she asked me, why is it that, you know, officers are not charged? Great deference is given to what a police officer says. I say it all the time. Civilians, you know, people believe, not all Black people, but, you know, white people believe what police say, right? And listen, those are the ones that wind up on juries. Why? Because we dodge subpoenas and we don't go to court. And when we do go to court and respond to a subpoena, then, you know, prosecutors, you know, want to know how many bubbles are in a bar of soap from us to determine whether or not they're going to allow us to sit on that jury. So I know that there are obstacles put in our way, but still we need to try to get on these juries. It's very important because jurors, and I don't want to broad blanket anybody, but, you know, when I say jurors, I'm just saying white people, okay? You understand, right? Jurors are reluctant to question what an officer does, a decision that an officer makes in a split second, right? Jurors are reluctant to do that. And here's why. Because according to the National Law Enforcement Officers Memorial Fund, there have been more than 1,500 law enforcement officers who died in the line of duty. And tens of thousands more have been injured. So listen, they recognize and understand that it's difficult being a police officer. It's a tough job, and there are dangers that are absolutely inherent to being a police officer. And because of that, jurors give us great deference. They believe what we say. And we know that sometimes police officers lie. A lot of times police officers lie. And that's why you see so many cases that I share with you where somebody gets arrested for interfering or resisting because officers put hands on them and they got to take them to jail for something. And then the case winds up getting dropped, or the officers wind up, in addition to the case getting dropped, charged with giving false and misleading statements or falsifying the arrest report or whatever words they used to say they lied. They lied. And knowing that, jurors still find it difficult to not side with police officers because, what we do is dangerous and they give us the benefit of the doubt. In 2018, according to FBI report, 55 officers were gunned down in the midst of, doing what it is that they do. Here's another study, if you will. In 2016, the Pew Research Center did a study, and they said that in this study, and that's why I believe that it's, mostly them and not us who feel this way, 42% of the people in this Pew Research Center study, 42% of the white adults said they have a lot of confidence in their police officers. And I don't even need a study to tell me that, only 14% of Black adults said they had that same confidence. That was in 2016. I don't know what the numbers might be now, right? Because I'm sure that over time, between 16 and 2018, confidence levels have certainly gone down, I would imagine, based on, what's happening to us and what's not happening to police officers. So that's why it's important to pay attention. That's why it's important to get engaged, be involved. That's why I try to share with you when I talk to you about, what's going on, what I think you should do to help to make things better. I make no guarantees, but I know if we continue to do what we're doing, if we continue to do nothing, then we'll continue to get more of this. So focus, pay attention, do not be distracted. Figure out who you need to talk to in the areas where you live. And when sheriffs who are elected officials become eligible for re-election, or when new people want to throw their hat in the ring, you need to pay attention and you need to go to community meetings and ask questions. District attorneys, elected officials. If you got a DA like they do in LA County who won't even meet with the people, Jackie Lacey, who hasn't seen a police shooting that she can't get her head around, then listen, this is not a lifetime appointment. At some point, she's going to be up for either another election or a replacement. And so folks need to be there and ask questions. I say what I say to you to give you the words to know what to ask, what to look for, how to decipher police code talk when you hear it. And so to that end, let me just talk real quickly to my good buddy James, because we had a conversation today about the Black family in the Nike store in Santa Monica that has gone viral. Many of you have seen it on my timeline. And what I said to James and what I said in my post when I put it up is I found it interesting, not really, but I found it off-putting, if you will, that the officers in that video, and you look at it and you see several of them, not all of them, but several of them had black leather gloves on when they were talking to the young man who they had who the manager of Nike in Santa Monica on the promenade followed this family outside and accused them of stealing a $12 basketball. And this guy was the wrong one. And he has an attorney, and I hope he is in it to win it. I hope he does not get discouraged if they try to drag this thing on, if they try to throw, a couple of coins at him. I hope he makes them really pay. Nike and that female manager, make them pay, because that's the only thing that they understand. And it's not often that you get an opportunity to really get at them, right? And so when those opportunities present themselves, then you need to handle your business. you need to use their system against them, right? Back to the officers. So these officers have on black leather gloves. And so what I was saying is that, here's what I know. Now, I know police officers are not going to tell you what I say. Police officers will tell you, like they did my friend James, that the reason officers wear black leather gloves is because they are concerned about infectious diseases. When you deal with somebody who might be kind of scruffy, homeless, somebody who you might not want to touch. Well, that's true. That's true. That's part of it. But I promise you, those officers who rolled up on that radio call on the promenade about a black man stealing a basketball out of a Nike store didn't show up with gloves, black leather gloves, because they were concerned about an infectious disease. Let me just say that. Here's what I know. Here's what I know about police culture, because, I did it for a couple of years and I'm guilty of it, right? I'm not guilty of mistreating people. I'm not guilty of beating people up, but I'm guilty of playing the game, if you will. And part of the game is intimidation. Because listen, I'm a girl. And so, I like to think I'm all bad, right? But I'm a girl and I know there's not a man I could beat up. And so part of what we do is, I talk crazy. I want to bluff, right? And we intimidate. And part of that is putting on black gloves. When you see 6 or 7 police officers coming at you and everybody's reaching in their back pocket like I used to do and get my black leather gloves and put them on, you don't know if I'm about to beat your A or if I'm about to beat your A. So I believe, I can't prove it because I'm not in their head and I'm not in their heart, but I believe that they came there looking to do work. I believe they came there looking to put in work, much like I said. Remember when Marlene Pinnock, the grandmother that was beaten on the Santa Monica freeway by the CHP officer, he said he was trying to save her from getting hurt. So that's why he was beating her like a MMA wrestler might beat somebody, MMA fighter might beat an opponent. He had on black leather gloves. Police officers put on black leather gloves because they about to beat your ass. Let me just say that. They about to beat your ass. And so that's why we wear black leather gloves. And I can tell you, like I told my good friend James, that nobody's going to say that. Nobody's going to say that. They're going to say what they told you, James. They do it to, not get contaminated by some noxious liquid. But the fact of the matter is, if officers were really concerned about contamination, they would carry a box of gloves just like your doctor does or your dentist, right? When I go to the dentist, like I did the other day, when I go to the dentist, right, they have boxes of gloves and they are peeling off and putting on gloves constantly because, they want to be safe and they want to be careful. And that's what medical professionals do. You're not going to put on a pair of gloves that you've just touched somebody who may have scabies or Lord knows what else back in your pants pocket. And then you walking around with this bacteria, this communicable disease, if you will, in the back of your uniform pants. Who does that? Nobody, James. But listen, I know you followed up and you talked to your people and they still speak in company speak, but that's why I'm here, dude. I'm here to decipher that. And I'm here to tell you the real. So that's their story and they're sticking to it. Police officers wear black leather gloves because they're concerned about infectious disease and contamination. Let's go with that. I'm done, James. Okay. On to my next story. There's on record now that CBP officers, I'm talking about Customs Border Protection officers, are, I don't know what's going on. I don't know where they getting those officers from, but they have 107. They have been arrested 176 times, 176 times since October for a range of criminal offenses, according to some kind of internal agency documents. Because now, police discipline and police misconduct, you can get those records through a Freedom of Information Act, right? And so it's been reported that CPB officers have been arrested 176 times since October. Listen, well, maybe if you guys are looking for work, you might want to start applying for Customs and Border Protection because they probably going to have some openings if they got that many officers involved in criminal activity. And again, Change is going to come from the inside, whether it's a police department or some other agency. I say, join, get on the police department. I know a lot of you are going to be pulling your hair out right now, but to not want to be a police officer is exactly what they want you to do. There is no, I don't believe, and I don't have the numbers to prove it, but I just don't believe that there's a real recruitment effort on a national level in communities of color to get Black folks on. I know LAPD is, I'm told, predominantly Hispanic. Not many Black folks on the LAPD, and Michael Moore could say whatever the heck he wants. I know he was supposedly talking about going to HBCUs to recruit folks. Now, whether or not he's doing it, I don't know, and how vigorously he's really trying to recruit Black folks, whether it's on a HBC or someplace else, I don't know. Because again, you know, once we get on, they might let you on the department, and then they work to get rid of you through attrition by other ways, by, you know, your background check. If you're not in good physical shape, because there's about 6 different things I had to do to get on LAPD, your credit history, your associates, who you know. I mean, there's a litany of ways to disqualify us. And so people, you need to be aware of that, and you need to know, and you need to share this with your young people who may aspire, because 13, 14, 15-year-olds don't know what they want to do. And you certainly don't want to have a young person get involved in something that might preclude them or prohibit them from a profession later on because they made a bad choice, because they didn't know, right? Obstacles are put in our way on purpose. And so they don't need to be mad about it. It is what it is. You just got to figure out how to overcome it. And if you want to make a change on any police department or any police agency, any law enforcement agency, you got to be on it. You got to be on it. Stomping around town and laying across the Santa Monica freeway and disrupting, you know, council meetings, it's not going to change anything, in my opinion. So, yeah. Customs Border Protection, 176 officers arrested on criminal charges, might be having some openings pretty soon. Pay attention. On to Dallas. Over in Fort Worth, you know, I talked about this police chief over there, Joel Fitzgerald, some time ago, who they were looking to get rid of because they said he was being unprofessional. He had gone to National Police Week in DC and got into an argument with one of the, I think with the president of the Police Officers Association over there in Fort Worth. And bottom line is, seemed like Joel must have pissed somebody off, right? Contempt of cop. He got on somebody's bad side. And so they figured out a way to get rid of him, and they fired him. Now he's fighting it. And he said that it's been determined by the Texas Workforce Commission. They ruled that Joel Fitzgerald was terminated for no cause of misconduct. In other words, they messed up. So it sounds like somebody about to get paid over there in Fort Worth. He's looking to, I think, be rehired and get back pay and benefits and all that other stuff. So he's fighting this, and it sounds like, you know, because sometimes police officers, just like they do with civilians, you know, officer want to put you in the system, they want to hum you to jail, and you know, they don't always follow the proper procedures, and that's why district attorneys wind up rejecting criminal cases, because they don't follow the procedure when a person may have actually been doing wrong, but because the officer cut corners, or because they lied about a thing, because they didn't follow procedure and protocol, case gets dismissed. Same thing with Joel Fitzgerald. Sounds like they jumped the gun, if you will, and fired him. And so he's fighting it. Now, it's also been reported that, you know, the city is doubling down, and they're prepared to drag this thing on as long as they possibly can, because it's reported that they have a history, a habit of dragging out lawsuits. And don't I know it? Because you guys have heard me talk about my lawsuit with LA Unified School District. And, you know, I've been fighting with them since 2014. This is 2019. And I was supposed to go to trial on July 15th, Monday. 3rd of July, the judge said, oh, you know what? I think I'm going to have you guys go to a different court, because he knew one of the attorneys for the school district. They worked in some law firm years ago. Now, this judge kind of knew this, you know, back in February when he was appointed, and why he didn't recuse himself then, I don't know. He waited till a week before we were supposed to go to trial to say, no, I'm going to send you back to the general court so you can sit there and They'll find a new court and a new judge for you. And so now I've got to get passed on somewhere else to some other judge who will already have a calendar established. And now I got to get in line. So I don't know when my trial will eventually go, but I'm here to win it. I'm in it to win it. Yeah, I'm not going anywhere. And if they're trying to wait me out, death will be the only thing that will keep me out of court against LA Unified School District. And so Joe Fitzgerald is about to embark on a probably years-long situation unless they just decide, you know what, let's just give him what he wants and make him go away. So that's what's going on. Also, in Charlottesville, it was reported that the man who ran over folks during that protest, I don't even want to say his name because it's not important who he is, but the avowed white supremacist, well, he was found guilty. And I think he was sentenced to 29. No, he was sentenced on 29 federal hate crime charges. And he was sentenced to 419 years, life plus 419 years. So he's a young guy. It's only 22. And my guess is that he will probably never get out of prison, and rightfully so. So that happened just last week, I believe it was, in Charlottesville. And then I talked about a police officer, I believe this was in Washington, a young female officer, you know, Billy Badass. She's out there with the fellas trying to mix it up with some brothers who were stopped because they were allegedly loitering outside of a McDonald's. And I guess this McDonald's has a situation where they do have some problems and they have a relationship with the police department. And they ask the police when they see folks standing outside of McDonald's. And I think people stand out there kind of like day laborers too, waiting for folks to come by and pick them up for work. So these brothers were standing outside the McDonald's and the police officers decided that they wanted to engage them. And in the midst of engaging them, one of the officers, a female, used the N-word. So this is over in Montgomery County, and the acting police chief, Marcus Jones, while he says he doesn't think that the men were being racially profiled, police chief Marcus Jones is a black man. He's the acting police chief, so my guess is he probably wants to be the police chief. And that's why he said he doesn't think this was racial profiling, but he does say that the language used was unacceptable. Yeah, you know, it reminds me of when I was reading it and listening to the double speak, the code talk, because, you know, in order to be a police chief, you almost have to speak company speak, right? You don't get to breathe that special air unless you do that. And so for him to say that this was not random racial profiling is absolutely nonsense. It's like, you know, when you go to a club and it says, you know, no tank tops, and everybody who looks like me wearing a tank top can't get in, but then you see other folks just, you know, doing a two-step all the way in, right? So they have these rules that are there, and then they selectively enforce it. So if you're selectively enforcing, and I wasn't there, I can't prove it, I'm just saying, if you were, Chief Marcus Jones, if they were selectively enforcing this when we want police to come and talk to people who stand outside of the McDonald's, is racial profiling, bro. I'm just saying. But anyway, yeah, so this female officer, she's in a little bit of trouble for using the N-word, not for stopping folks, but for using the N-word. So understand this, if you live in Montgomery County, Google it so you'll know which McDonald's you need to pass by real quickly, because if you go by too slow, they may call the police on you and say that you're loitering. I'm just saying. There's also another video that's going around, and this is bananas. This is a white guy. He's a security guard. These security guards they are wearing me out. They are just doing the most. This white security guard at an IRS office in Ohio, Euclid, Ohio, brother man, black man, he comes in there on duty, police officer in uniform, in full regalia. He comes in there to find out about something he received in the mail on his taxes, I guess, I don't know. And he had a question and he just wanted to get a phone number. And so this white security guard tells brother man, you can't come in here, dude, with this gun. You got to go take it and put it back in the car. And so the officer was like, what are you talking about? I'm not doing that, for a number of reasons, right? So the white security guard pulls his gun on the black police officer, and now he's literally almost doing, what we call, when we're at the shooting range, like a duck walk. He's actually chasing the policeman because the policeman was like, you know what, I'm out of here, because he said he was afraid. He thought the guy was just going to shoot him in his back. So he just turned around, he walked out, he was headed to the elevator. You could see him standing at a bank of elevators. He's pushing the button, waiting to get on, waiting for the door to open. And this wackadoodle is chasing behind him, with his gun in his hand and duck walking. And then when the elevator door opens, you see the security guard kind of grab the officer by the hand with one of his hands. He's got his gun in the other hand. I don't know if he had the finger on the trigger or on the frame. I don't know, but he's stupid is what he is. And so the police were called. Now get a load of this. The person who called the police, not on the security guard, but on the officer, didn't tell dispatch when they called that they said there was a man in here with a gun refusing to leave. And so that was the information the police were given, right? Sometimes we get information, may or may not be true, but you don't know what we've been told when we arrive. Officers were given that information. Nobody ever said that the man with the gun that's refusing to leave is a police officer in uniform. But when the officers arrived, obviously somebody in that group had some sense. And it was from Lucas County Sheriff's Department. Those were the officers that responded, and they handled the situation. And so now this police officer is off on stress, understandably so. He's off on stress, and hope he has a good attorney. But these little tink, he's really emboldened these folks, right? He got them thinking, whether you a security guard confronting a uniformed police officer. I done already talked to at least one officer today that told me if that was him, it would have been like a shootout at OK Corral, because you don't get to pull a gun on me. That was just one person that shared their thoughts on that. So, living while black, working while black, driving while black, walking while black. Yeah, it's problematic. And, these white folks understand that when they call the police on us living while black, it's just the law of averages. There's a possibility that they might get somebody who's like-minded, who might wind up and who might show up and wind up physically hurting and or killing us. So people govern yourselves accordingly, right? Okay, here's another story that was really troublesome to me, and I talked about this on my podcast, but I'm talking about it again because I think, not victim blaming, but I think that there's something the victim probably could have done a little differently that might have been helpful. And what happened is that there was a gentleman who was stopped, black man, who was stopped by some undercover narcotics officers who were conducting a surveillance on a drug house. And the black man, he pulled into a driveway to make a U-turn, right? Who wouldn't do that if you were wanting to turn around, pull into a residential driveway, pull into a commercial driveway, and make that 3-point turn to go back in the opposite direction? Well, he happened to pull into a driveway of the house that was under surveillance. Sounds like he didn't know it. He wasn't involved in it from what I've read. But nonetheless, when he pulled into that driveway, the officers saw him. So they should have seen him not go to the house, right? But he pulled into another driveway and they stopped him and they rolled up on him real quick, plain clothes. They're opening the door. They're yelling at him and he's confused, like, what the? And they're telling him get out of the car. He's not getting out quick enough. So they tase him and, they're telling him again to get out of the car. They ultimately wind up yanking him out of the car, throw him on the ground, and he's just screaming in agony because he had just had surgery. He was recovering and he had staples in his stomach. And he also had on a colostomy bag. Well, yeah, it didn't go so well because the colostomy bag nor the staples stopped these officers from roughing him up and for ultimately arresting him for what? Resisting, because they didn't have anything else, right? He filed a civil suit. It went to court. And now the judge has just come back and said, hey, dude, can't help you. I got nothing for you because you didn't do what the officers were telling you to do when they told you to get out of the car. And so This incident started back in November 2016. He filed his lawsuit in 2017, and then last year in 2018, or no, last May, this U.S. District Judge said that Lamar Wright is the gentleman's name. He's 38 years old, and he said that what the officers did was reasonable. And here's what you need to know, because the judge said that there's case law that says if an officer suspects a person is involved in drug activity, then the officer may reasonably suspect that you're armed. Listen to what I'm telling you. Case law. If officers suspect you're involved in drug activity, all they have to do is suspect it. Remember, I believe. Great deference is given to what I think and what I say. If an officer suspects you're involved in drug activity, then it's reasonable for them to suspect that you're carrying a weapon. And if they suspect that you're carrying a weapon, then they get to deal with you like you're carrying a weapon. And that's how these officers articulated they dealt with Lamar Wright. And the judge sided with him. The judge agreed. And he ultimately threw his case out. So it could happen. It could happen. And you need to know it could happen. And, I'm just saying, while I don't fault Lamar Wright, because I'm sure he never thought it would get to that, but I'm just saying, if it were me, if I were recovering from some kind of surgery, something serious enough where I had staples in my stomach and I was wearing a colostomy bag, I promise you that I would have yelled that out. That would have been the first thing out of my mouth is, I got a colostomy bag, officer. I want to do what you're telling me, but hold up. Hear me when I tell you. Maybe they would have acted differently. Maybe not. I don't know. I'm just looking at a couple of comments from some folks. I see Joseph. Yeah, you're right. I see your comment, Joseph. Thank you for that. I appreciate you. Lisa, thank you. I appreciate you commenting, and I appreciate you being here. But yeah, so listen, so again, you need to know, you need to know your rights. You need to know the law, and you need to know that sometimes officers are given information that may not comport with what's actually going on. And that's why I say, you guys, comply and complain, because this poor guy, having those staples in his stomach. I mean, if you see that video, and it's out there, you could Google it. His name is Lamar Wright. If you see him and the kind of pain you can imagine he was in as he was laying on his stomach with this colostomy bag, and the officers, when they came and put handcuffs finally on him, they weren't gentle, right? Yeah. So save yourself some anguish, some grief, some hurt if you can. If you got a situation going on, articulate that immediately to the officers. Hey, I want to do what you're telling me. I'm not moving. I'm not getting out the car. What do you need me to do to make you feel safe, officer? It's come to that. It shouldn't, but it's come to that. So comply and complain. And then listen, there's another DR death. Now, this happened some time ago, but we're just now hearing about it. There's a young man by the name of Tracy Jerome Jester Jr., and he died of a respiratory illness at the DR. This was back in March, and the family's not sure as to why and what and who and when, but deaths are still being reported out of the Dominican Republic, so be aware. And let's see. I have another interesting story. This is out of the NYPD, and this is a NYPD female officer who says that she was sexually abused and raped by cops in the Harlem precinct where she worked. Now, this is a long and involved story, you guys. I don't even know what to make of this, because this woman finally said she just quit the department. She said she was in a never-ending cycle of abuse by her partner officers, and when she tried to protest, when she tried to tell, somehow she wound up being beaten and raped. She was married at the time. Why she didn't go to her husband, I don't know. But yeah, I know that. I know how police departments can be, and I know how difficult it is to come forward and report stuff because you're not often believed. I don't know if an entire precinct wouldn't support her. I don't know why she didn't go outside of the precinct to family members and someone else, but nonetheless, she finally just got so fed up she quit. And it says that the people that she complained about, some of them, at least 3 of them, are still on the department and they're still active. She's filed a lawsuit. She's seeking some astronomical figure, $90 million is what her attorney plans to file in this lawsuit in the months to come against the NYPD. So I'll share the link with you, and I will also keep you posted on how that thing works its way through either administrative system or civil settlement, if that's what happens. Her name is, just so you know, in case you want to Google it, because listen, just because I say it, I'm going to tell you the truth, but don't always take my word. Always do your own homework, do your own due diligence. Her name is Maria Menendez. Maria Mendez is her name. Police officer Maria Mendez, NYPD officer, who says that her partners were regularly, routinely beating her up and raping her. So anyway, yeah, that's a lot. All right, you guys, that's it. I appreciate you for hanging out with me. And let me see who's here. Appreciate you for hanging out with me. And we'll do this again next week. Be looking for my podcast on Tuesday, Sergeant Dorsey Speaks. For those of you who are new and don't know who I am, I'm a retired 20-year veteran sergeant of the Los Angeles Police Department. If you want to know more about me and my 20-year career, where I worked within all 4 bureaus of the city of Los Angeles: South Bureau, Central Bureau, West Bureau, Valley Bureau. Spent my entire 20-year career in uniform. So that's why I can talk to you the way that I do, because I was a ground pounder. And I'm proud to say that I was a street cop for my entire career. And so I understand how they think. I understand what they do. And I understand why they do it, and sometimes how they're able to get away with it. And so that's what I'm here to do, is educate you, share with you what I know based on my real life lived experiences. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I'm just sharing with you what I know to help you make an informed decision about how you want to conduct and comport yourself going forward. So to that end, visit my website, sgtcheryldorsey.com. Check out my autobiography, The Creation of a Social Advocate, Black and Blue, The Creation of a Social Advocate, available on my website. If you want a signed copy, if you just want a regular copy, you can purchase it through Amazon. And for those of you who aren't hip to my YouTube channel, my YouTube subbies know what's up. Visit YouTube and follow and subscribe. Sergeant Dorsey Speaks on YouTube. So that's it, you guys. Until next week, you guys be good, be safe. Have a great weekend. See you then.